The home mechanic again. Welcome, Honda Rebel family. We are wanted to do this video because whenever I was working on the carburetor, there didn't really find a video for how to take this air breather off. It is a pain, and so there's a few things that I stumbled across and I wanted to share. Um, First, just to recap where we're at, we're doing a rebuild and a repaint job and kind of refurbish this Honda. It's about 2004. We're going to take it all the way apart. So, in the process of taking it apart, like say for instance, if somebody had a bent frame and you had to take your bike apart and put everything on a new frame, this video series might be for you. On this specific video, all we're going to do is talk about what it takes to get the air breather. First thing, we basically, just like any other carburetor pull job, you want to take your tank off. You loosen up these two screws in the back to get to the seat screws right here. You take off the seat, it just slides right out. This is the bolt that holds the gas tank on the bottom, and then there's one on each side. Typically, whenever we take stuff apart, we kind of stick the screw where it came from. Kind of helps us keep track of where the stuff comes off. The next big thing is loosening up your the cables, that the throttle cable. And typically, what I do for the carburetor is I just take these two screws out, and it loosens it up. You take this easy one out first, right here, and then you can bend this one out and get the hard one. Whenever I go back in, it's the same thing. You just leave that slack there, and you make that connection. You pop it in the hole, and then you do this easy side, and then I bolt that back onto the carburetor. So it's really not too hard. The carburetor. So basically, where your carburetor is, you got this guy right here. This connects to the breather box right here. Now I already do have the battery holding case out of the way, but I just want to show this to you. To get this carburetor off, once you get the linkage undone and to get everything else unhooked, you actually got to squeeze this guy in some and pop it to the inside of this hole. Basically, you shove this in there and it's backed up just enough to get that carburetor to pull it out. And I usually take my carburetors out on this side over here, and you just kind of twist it and miss these screws and it pulls right out. I always put a clean towel or something inside this manifold. We do not want anything funky. See, look, this thing's been sitting around so long. Weird stuff like this is hanging around. We don't want bugs, dirt daubers, decide to try to build a nest while I'm, rebuilding my carburetor or whatever. But anyway, this part would be stuck in there. Now we pulled this out so we can get better access to this breather box. Underneath the battery box, there is a hidden screw here. So we got all the other screws out of the top, and there's your inlet breather that most of the air sucks from behind the seat right here on top, and it just pulls right out, no problem. But there is a VGR valve down here. So this VGR valve is really what's kind of in the way of this thing coming out. One thing I did notice is that the breather box and the EGR valve, and if it was in a car, that's what we would call it, both have drainage tubes. So, what happened was I wanted to clean my carburetor, and I'm one of those guys like, well, I want to make sure that everything else was cleaned out too. And this was before we decided that we're going to take this bike as far as we did. So sometimes I want to take the breather apart, make sure all the tubes are cleared out. this is our crankcase ventilation pipe, and you got to address this. Some of these dudes, they like to get on their carburetor right here and just have a one basic air breather, maybe staggered back. But you really got to address this, especially states like California that got smog laws and stuff. While your engine is in there stroking back and forth, this kind of lets it breathe. And whenever you have a compression stroke and it makes that explosion in there, and actually we want as much of that to stay, but sometimes some of it slips by the rings and finds little holes where the rings are you got a set of rings here, you got another one where they come together. So sometimes air escapes in your compression stroke when it fires, and it has no place else to go but out here. Now, back in 1940s, like we have a 48 Style Master in the family for a while, and there was no EGR valve. In fact, the crankcase ventilation on top of the valve cover was a piece of pipe that just went straight down into the bottom of the car and just let all that escape out onto the road. Since then, they kind of got wise about smog, pollution, and everything else, and they decided to run that back through the carburetor to help kind of burn off some of that oil. And in return, you're going to have spark plugs get clogged up with funk, and that's why, they don't last as long as they used to, because you're taking in some of that. But it does really help clean out the air. The EGR valve also has a drain tube, and what I found out is this thing doesn't just pull out. Up underneath here, where my screwdriver is pointing, there is another screw, and that screw screws into the bottom into this air breather. So by the looks of things right now, what we're going to try is take these 4 screws out right here, get this top part off if we can, and then maybe we could get a little bit more lift to get a screwdriver, and I have to come up with something smaller than this one to get up and get to that screw on the bottom. Maybe we get this thing out of the way, and then the air breather can slide out that way. Okay, we're back. We did get this guy off. The VGR valve is really nasty on the inside. Here's the scoop. They have a star head screw on the bottom of this thing. It's probably been on there since this bike was built, likely. And that thing was tight. We tried to get in there with different devices, tools, and what I did was I basically ended up having to get a 1/4-inch socket. I can drop one of my, it looks like about a number 2 star head in there, and I end up getting it to move like that. But actually, the thing rounded off, and I had to get in there with a pair of channel locks and snap in there, and I got it to crack loose with the channel locks. Came back with this and worked it out very slowly. Every once in a while we're sneaky like this, and the home mechanics come up and make tools rather than spending money. That's how we home mechanics do it around here, and save money. You don't have to go out and buy a special short screwdriver for a one-time use. So, maybe we can make something and make it happen. So that's what we did today. However, the air breather coming out the bait without pulling the motor or some other major items is still on hand. That thing is crammed in there. I do have the room to start moving it out, but we get the camera, we're going to move it to the other side. There's a chain guard that's hitting now. So we're really close. It's actually out more now than it's ever been since we've started this, but we're still not there. So we're going to the other side. Where's this fire buried again? Tokyo, I think. Ta-da! It is possible to get the breather box off. With the amount of trouble that we had, I'm not sure you'd want to.
Unless you're doing what we're doing, taking it all apart and painting it and all that fun stuff, then it's worth doing it because you have to paint all.
So the idea was, can we just get the breather box off without pulling the motor or anything like that? So maybe somebody wanted to pull the breather box out and do like some kind of, you know, customized hot rod, different kind of filter look, and you want that breather box out of the way. But this thing's pretty nasty. Been sitting around from 10 years old. Hand me that VGR valve. So this crazy VGR valve pops in here. It's got a Phillips screwdriver head. In my book, bad design. We almost stripped the Phillips trying to get the thing out because it was stuck in place. Probably factory put on there for years and years. So we lost the bolt. We haven't found it just yet, but just to get this video over with, likely what we'll do whenever we come back, we'll find a regular hex head screw to go in here to take the place of the other one. So granted, sometime in one of our futures, if we want to take this off again, it'd be a heck of a lot easier for the next guy. Well, YouTube, it's starting to get dark. We still got a few things to pick up and put up, cover up, in case it rains this evening. As you see, you know, the home mechanic, sometimes we don't have like nice sheltered garage and stuff. We just do whatever we gotta do, wherever we gotta do it. We make up our own tools sometimes, but we get the job done. I'm the home mechanic. We're out. Peace.
Yeah, I know, but you can't see it real well. You want
Can you
just
see me?
yes, I can see you.
Okay.